welcome. Greetings all, whether it is morning, noon, or night. Welcome to this event. I'm Nicola Dyer, Senior Advisor at the Global Seaweed Coalition. It is my delight, my pleasure to guide this conversation today. Our objective with this event is to raise awareness of seaweed's multiple contributions to climate change and that adaptation, and to link that with the upcoming launch of the UN Global Seaweed Initiative, which we're super excited about. It's a new partnership that was presented and announced at the recent UN Ocean Conference, and it's going to be formally launched tomorrow at UNGA in Conference Room 7 for those of you who are part of that conversation. Look forward to it. And we're going to hear more about the road to COP and beyond. Let me take you quickly through the agenda. First, we're going to be welcomed by our host, Vincent de Mizel of UN Global Compact and co-founder of the Global Seaweed Coalition. Next, we're going to have two keynotes. We'll see. The first will be from the chair of Global Seaweed Coalition's chair of our advisory council, Concepcion. It will then be our honor to Did I get that? Yeah. Thank you. You are gracious. Minister of Fisheries and the Blue Economy of Madagascar, who's going to speak about Madagascar's strategic approach to seaweed, and it's as well a little later, and the global leadership in the setup, in the run-up to the UN Global Seaweed Initiative, and maybe something more. We will see. And here's the figure part that we will also be hearing from France's ambassador for the Poles and Maritime issue, Olivier Poivre. And if not, just putting you on alert, yes, maybe we might ask you to step in and say a few words in case His Excellency is delayed. We will have a short video, technology willing, from Dr. Judy. She's leading important work on something called the seaweed breakthrough, which is part of the overall series of ocean breakthroughs. It's a very important piece of scientific work that's going on that's going to be presented ultimately at COP31. And following all these framing perspectives, we're going to dive into some substance. We'll do a deep dive into seaweed's contributions to climate, into national approaches to integrating seaweeds into development planning, and the importance of seaweed having representation in global conversations. So we'll first hear from three country representatives, the first being Yas, who we're very grateful is doing this from France, Yas Farjad of France. And then this is another finger crossed one, Leonardo Sambodo of Indonesia, and Fernando of Chile. And then we will switch gears to hear a private sector perspective from Nancy Uraba. And then our dear friend Chantal Carpentier is going to bring this segment home. So Chantal is the head of the Trade, Environment, Climate Change, and Sustainable Development branch of UN Trade and Development. I don't think there's anything left after that. All right. So in Geneva. After that, we'll have some time for Q&A with the speakers. So get your questions ready, whether you put them online or whether you want to ask them directly in the forum, that's okay. And then time, we really do hope time permits, is we'll welcome interventions from the floor, in the room and online. So get your questions ready. And for those who are following online, questions in the chat and we can relay them. And maybe we'll be able to give you the floor, but to make sure your question gets registered, please put it in the chat. So we need a couple more interventions before we close. We will have a short presentation from our friend Chef Andrew Wilkinson, who, for those who are in the room, you're in for a treat after, because there are going to be some light refreshments that Andrew is very kindly offering. And we are going to hear a few words from Brazil about seaweed. It might be a very few words, very good. Seaweed and COP30. And finally, we're going to hear from Minister Poubert again about the UN Global Seaweed Initiative. With all of that, let's begin. Now we've had the whole event. That's all, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Well, first of all, thank you to Nicola for moderating all of this and the crazy work she did over the last 2 days. I think we have no time, but she deserves a big round of applause she really did a lot of work over the last day to make it happen and to make it tomorrow happen as well. So yeah, it's very moving for me to be here today because it all started 5 years ago in this very city, a few blocks away. We were only a couple of people, and I met with the UN people, and I was convinced them to do a seaweed manifesto and then a seaweed coalition. That was right before COVID, and I think COVID has been a very I mean, there's the same ideogram in Chinese for opportunity and problem, and I think it was very right because during COVID, I mean, this high flyer from the UN, they were less busy or they had more time to work on seaweed actually. So it's very good that we managed to create all this movement over the last 5 years. And I'm very pleased to be here and to host this meeting and to support this, to see that all the UN agencies, all these countries are gathering now. I was in Ethiopia, a week ago for the UN Food System Summit, and we announced there that only 8.2% of the global world population were suffering from and dying from hunger, which is way better than last year, and we saved 22 million people over the last year from starvation, which looks like something that no one talked about and no one did say a word about it. But that means that we have saved 40,000 people from starvation every day over the last year, which is good and which is very positive. For multilateralism, that's a success for science, that's a success for cooperation, for global solidarity. And no one, it was very frustrating for me because this very day we announced this, the headline of the newspaper was a story of a guy, 4 people in Manhattan, mass shooter. And I think the narrative is very wrong here. We are spending way too much time speaking about problems and dramatic situations and feeding the next generation with fears and drama. I mean, seaweed is a great solution, and that could support changing the narrative. And we should talk about solution and the success we have. And I think what we are feeling today and what we are living today with this problem around populism rising is also with all of us. We should change our narrative and talk about our success, talk about what's going right, be optimistic, and because the next generation will not change anything if they feel like they will fail. Yeah, no, but we have to fear the future, but we have to hope the future will be good. And I've been to the future actually, I have to tell you. And I tell you a secret, in the end, we will win. Yeah, so trust me. We will win. So trust me, and seaweed will support. No, so let's be optimistic. Seaweed should be a good solution. We have very exciting days over the next week and weeks after. And tomorrow will be a very important day for the ocean, not only because of the Seaweed Initiative, of course because of the Seaweed Initiative, but also because of the DBNG treaty that will come into life, which is a great step forward. And the United Nations has failed to deliver the promises to make the Earth a paradise. But I think it saved this Earth to be a hell many, many times. So that's a good achievement as such. And we count on you all to change the narrative and welcome in here. And we go back to Nicola.
Saiu as passagens aqui do Guilherme e do Francisco. Deixa eu mandar.
Now it's over to our first keynote speaker,
Falta só o do Santiago.
Chair of Advisory Council, Anushka Concepcion.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you again for the Global Seaweed Coalition for organizing this event. Thank you, Vincent, for your welcoming remarks. Thank you very much. So I would like to provide a brief overview of the potential of scientific role that seaweeds play towards contributing to climate mitigation and/or adaptation. And while there is a lot of hype around some of these potential applications of seaweeds, I think it demonstrates the need to continue an amazing application to help us determine what is hype from what the real science-based solutions are that to benefit us all. So seaweeds can do a lot of amazing things and has the potential to be used in a variety of applications. And scientific research conducted over the decades has identified the following examples that can play a role in climate mitigation and adaptation. So first, seaweed farms and forests provide habitat. They enhance biodiversity, improve water quality through the nutrients. They can also help restore degraded ecosystems by mitigating ocean acidification, for example, and support valuable fisheries. Seaweed forests have been shown to capture oceanic carbon just by growing. However, there are key research gaps that still exist that need to be addressed. These include understanding how climate change impacts long-term resilience of seaweeds from climate stressors and site-specific ecological trade-offs, as well as scalability of several restoration efforts. There's also the additional questions regarding the validity of seaweed and carbon sequestration. Another example, seaweed provides protein, minerals, and vitamins as sustainable food sources. And seaweed use in animal feed has been shown to improve growth and health of, for example, livestock and poultry. In fact, components of some seaweeds have been shown to reduce methane production and emissions in cattle, which is a driver of greenhouse gas emissions. Key research gaps include, seaweed also contains many bioactive compounds. This is very important with applications in pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, and agriculture. And currently, the largest scale use is in agricultural biostimulants. But again, research gaps do exist, and these applications include scalability, consumer acceptance, development of food safety standards, nutritional consistency across species and environments, and bromoform toxicity of methane-reducing compounds. Also, seaweed can be processed into bioplastics and textiles, with many pilot projects and techno-economic analyses underway globally. But by creating sustainable products, seaweed offers a nature-based solution that can reduce our reliance on fossil fuel-based materials. These research gaps for these applications also include scalability. That's going to be a theme, the scalability and environmental trade-offs, as well as cost effectiveness of these applications and competition with land costs for industrial uses. But we are fortunate, I will leave this to presenters, I believe, from UNCTAD, who will go more in detail during their remarks. Next slide, please. Thank you. So despite seaweed's potential, the sector is still not well understood, and it is undersupported, lacks the necessary coordination, standardization, and dedicated governance for it to expand globally and to fully contribute to the SDGs. Specifically, coordination and support are needed to address many research gaps that still exist. While some activities are being investigated at a small scale, these approaches are often piecemeal and have limited support. Therefore, there's a need to some examples listed on the slide. For example, assemble and develop harmonized standards and regulations for seaweed use as a food, feed, and nutraceuticals. While it's important to note that UNCTAD, one of GSC's close partners, is currently working on mapping international standards and regulations for seaweed, better coordination and support for this activity is still needed for long-term success. Also, there is a need to support the development of a program to establish more climate-resilient seaweed strains that support things like aquaculture production, ensure species of interest are conserved and in some cases successfully restored, which leads me to my next point of supporting and guiding the emergence of national and regional seaweed research centers. And these can close research gaps as well as others, including innovative farming technologies or processes that will support the scale up. Here we go, the scale up, many of the applications I mentioned earlier. So what's neat? If you can please click on the next slide. Someone can please do that. So what is needed? Spoiler.
Teamwork.
Here we go.
Thank you so much, Andy.
Thank you. There we go. The Global Seaweed Initiative.
That's fine.
Will provide global leadership, coordination, knowledge, based science. to harness the full potential of the multiple climate supporting uses of seaweed at the global level. So, as I conclude, and with permission, I'll hand it back to Nicola, but I graciously turn the floor over to Your Excellency for your most welcome remarks. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Minister, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Honorable colleagues, esteemed delegates, dear scientists, friends and families in seaweed, all protocol duly observed. Good evening. My presence here witnesses once more the will of Madagascar to be part of the countries that would wish to play a role model regarding the development of seaweed farming at global scale. Under the leadership of His Excellency Mr. Underappreciated, President of the Republic of Madagascar and acting President of the SADC region, through his vision, agricultural transformation country doubled its seaweed production since the last decade, starting from 15,000 tons weight in 2015 to reach 27,000 tons today. This situation matches with the global trend, as today seaweed tripled in terms of production, 35 million tons, and doubled in value, 1.2 billion USD. Since the beginning of this initiative, Madagascar always responded positively with commitments, as like many others, myself believed in this coalition with my colleague Vincent Domaizel. Since Agadir, Morocco, 2021, with Melanie, Felana, Antananarivo, 2023, Nice, France, with Nicola, and the others this year, 2025. And now, here in New York. All of these active tendencies mean willingness, leadership, as we would wish to prove to the whole world that seaweed plays an important role in contributing directly, indirectly to food security, job creation, and poverty alleviation. Today, in Madagascar, we have in total 10 companies farming seaweed, such as Ocean Farmers, Nusibora Seaweed, Ibis, Yake, Arom Alg, Natural Alg, and it is still growing as people are applying to invest blue around it. They are mainly in the western and northeastern side of the country, including the famous islands of Nusibe and Saint Mary. In my country, seaweed provides directly 3,000 jobs for mainly women and youth, and it is considered as one of the effective income-generating activities to reduce pressure on marine resources, particularly fishing and food. Seaweed provides habitat for many herbivorous species, such as Cygnus, Loligo, and many others. Today, again, we export to France, China, USA, and some companies succeeded to partner with big and well-known companies such as Cargill. This is once again to prove that seaweed farming in Madagascar is growing bigger, and we wish it will be the case at global scale, mainly in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, like many countries around the world, Madagascar is encountering several issues related to climate change, such as cyclones and global warming, but luckily, we do not have serious diseases yet. For instance, in the beginning of this year, the cyclones Jude, Bunde, threatened our genetic resources, but seaweed proved its resilience, as my colleagues within the Ocean Farmers reported that a region's contribution during floods stimulated production as it enriches the sea surface. Thus, Madagascar is planning to identify more sites to put in place seaweed banks to prevent crisis and in case of severe cyclones or disease, working on collaboration with the Global Seaweed Coalition. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are working directly with the private sector in Madagascar, and then at the same time with the community. So, my department provides the facilitation regarding the administration, the governance in general, the private sector invest, and then the community apply the knowledge. So that's why we are working together with the private sector and then the company and then the communities, I'm sorry, and then we export after. So this is how we do the seaweed farming generally in Madagascar. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So important to hear from a country that's showing real leadership in the seaweed sector, and we're looking forward to hearing from you again towards the end of this session. And now we do have a change of speakers to announce. Unfortunately, His Excellency Poivre d'Arvor was detained. He's not able to be here. On the other hand, we are delighted to welcome from France, from late in the day, Ms. Elsa Tudal, who is going to speak on behalf of France. And there's been a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on to make sure that that can happen. Elsa, the floor is yours, and we really hope your sound is going to be good. So bear with us if it doesn't work. Elsa, thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me well. I am very delighted and honored to be with you tonight, for me, behind my screen. But I'm very, very happy to see that your energy and all the good issue we can talk about algae, and so it's a great honor for me, of course, but for us, for the French Minister of Environment, to be within this great initiative and to reaffirm our commitment to an ocean-based future, sustainable and visionary. Thank you very much for the organization, and thank you very much, Her Excellency Ministry, for your announcement and your speech. All of you today, you are convinced that seaweed is an ocean extraordinary gift, a strategic resources for food security, for climate resilience and innovation. And for us, algae embodies what the future needs and demands, that is to say, low impact production and ocean-based solution. But despite this promise, the sector remains sometimes very fragmented. Is that we can see in France, in Europe, and my colleague Yas Farjad will give you some example and illustration about that and what we want to do to reaffirm our leadership and our energy to find something more coordinated. But what we lack today is not opportunities, but just organization and global leadership. But today we've got this global leadership here, and this is a very, very good news. And this is precisely where the United Nations Global Initiative for Seaweed intervenes. It intervenes as a kind of compass to guide global action, a kind of hub also to connect knowledge, standards, and innovation across borders. The Seaweed Initiative is also a voice to ensure that small producers, coastal communities, and youth and nobody is left behind. And this is also, and this is a more important for me, I guess, this initiative is also a catalyst for scaling up seaweed solution to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. So I firmly believe that such initiative has the power to elevate seaweed from a baby issue to a global strategic priority. And France stands ready to come on board this mission. And this is my great pleasure in the name of France and of our minister, and a great privilege to announce that France, together with Madagascar, and I thanks once again His Excellency Minister, we will be a co-chair for the UN Global Seaweed Initiative. And together, let us elevate seaweed beyond a resource from the ocean to become a cornerstone solution for the health of our planet and future generation. So thanks a lot for your energies. Thanks a lot for your good vibes. And I hope you will follow a wonderful meeting, and I'm sure we will have a very pertinent and very dense agenda for the next months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elsa. Thank you. By the way, the sound was very low in here, but I don't know whether you could tell everybody was barely breathing because they wanted to hear every word you said. So we're just delighted to hear that France is going to co-chair this initiative. And we're looking forward to a possible announcement later in the session from Minister Matante. And in the meantime, let us move on. Again, really thank you, Elsa, for doing this very late for you. And it's going to be even later for Yas when she comes in. Sorry about that, but we appreciate this is a global seaweed coalition, which means that we need to be ready to do these meetings at all of the day, night, etc. Now, and sometimes it means we need to pre-record our interventions, and that is precisely what the next one is going to be. It's really to show the conservation imperative, the work that is going on the breakthrough, to be presented by Dr. Juliette Brody by pre-recorded intervention. Juliette, over to you.
So here you can hear, but the people online, I'm not sure. Oh.
We can't hear it here. Because
Okay, so let me try something.
technical issues, sorry, we're still working on this.
Share the sound.
No.
So Juliette is currently in Indonesia, I believe. She recorded this video last week to explain very, very briefly. Let's see.
Yeah, but the problem is that my computer
Okay.
is not.
Tell you what, we will try to edit this so that in the recording of the meeting, the video will be included. And Melanie, if you're able to get it to work a little bit later on, then we can, but please don't break your head about it. We'll work on getting it included into the record of the meeting later on. So maybe we can turn back to, that's it, sharing the meeting. So now time for us to turn once again. So now we're turning to the panelists, and we're going once again to somebody who is so dedicated that she's staying up very late at night to present to us. So Yas Farjad, over to you to present France for algae. The floor is yours.
Thank you, dear Nicola. I hope that you're hearing me well. Good afternoon, good evening, distinguished delegate, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure and an honor to present today the France National Roadmap for algae, which we see as both a national commitment and a contribution to the collective international effort. Actually, this roadmap is not the product of administration alone. It's emerged from a broad and inclusive consultation, bringing together different actors such as producers, harvesters, processors, researchers, innovators, local authorities, and civil societies. Its strength lies in its ability to bridge perspective, reconcile economic ambition with environmental responsibility, and build trust across the entire value chain. The France National Roadmap for the algae sectors is structured around 5 strategic priorities. Firstly, improving governance and regulatory framework to create clarity, predictability, and confidence, and enabling sustainable increase in production with shared protective and ambitious environmental, health, and social standards. Strengthening resilience and competitiveness of enterprise in the algae sector, closing knowledge gaps and boosting innovation through science, technology, and research. On the social pillar, raising societal awareness and acceptance, ensuring that algae are understood and embraced by citizens and consumers. And finally, promoting excellence internationally, projecting national knowledge and national know-how, and contributing to global progress. This roadmap is above all a vision. Algae are not only a resource, as was mentioning from the beginning of this event, it's a resource of tomorrow, but a strategic asset today for climate resilience, food security, and sustainable growth. And it provides France with a coherent framework to move from fragmented initiative to an integrated, future-oriented policy. As emphasized by my colleague Elsa Tudal, France strongly supports the United Nations Task Force on the algae sectors. And this task force objective resonates directly with the fifth priority of our national roadmap, international engagement and cooperations. And this alignment is not symbolic, it's substantive. Both our roadmap and the task force aim to strengthen governance at multiple levels, mobilize knowledge and innovation, build societal trust in algae as a pillar of sustainability, and create the condition for a coordinated global framework in the sector, enabling sustainable increase in production with shared, protective, and ambitious environmental, health, and social standards. And as a conclusion, the France National Roadmap for the algae sector is both a domestic strategy and an international offer of partnership. And by aligning with the UN Task Force for the algae sector, we reaffirm our conviction that algae are a shared global opportunity and that only through cooperation can we unlock their full potential for people, planet, and also prosperity. Thank you very much, and thank you for all the efforts, and we are delighted to be part of this impressive and inspiring international initiative. Thank you again.
Really good to hear about the process, especially that broad consultation of all of those stakeholders. It's something near and dear to my heart. So let me pick on that point especially. And thank you to you as well for staying up late to deliver this. And we've really appreciated France's leadership in this process as well. And now it is my pleasure and honor to turn to Leonardo Adipurmama Sambodo from Indonesia, from the Ministry of National Development Planning. Leonardo Sambodo, over to you. Thank you.
Nicola, for the invitation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Indonesia is the global leader in seaweed production. We are number 2 in the world. Currently, we grow species such as Capasicus parisi, also Gracilia gigas, which yield valuable hydrocolloids like carrageenan and agar-agar, used extensively in food processing. And over 63,000 small-scale coastal and island households rely on seaweed farming, make it vital for local livelihoods and national food security. So that is why Indonesia then put seaweed in our national long-term development plan 2025 until 2045, aiming to boost the marine and fishery sector's contribution to our GDP, as well as we then later on translated into the medium-term development plan 2025 until 2029. Which prioritizes the of natural resources, including seaweed. To develop this sector, Indonesia focuses on improving productivity, empowering farmers, expanding large-scale farming. Particularly right now, we are receiving so many investors, particularly from India, for seaweed farming. And also, we try to integrate a special planning between coastal and also marine special planning, and upgrading processing technology, as well as diversifying seaweed products in Indonesia. We are also developing an integrated seaweed development action plan. This is a current, this is still ongoing. Hopefully following the footsteps of France, that will offer a comprehensive framework for quality enhancement, industrial growth, innovation, financing, and also governance. The implementation will also benefit from the International Tropical Seaweed Research Center that has been launched in the last year, which serves as a central hub for scientific research, technology transfer, as well as capacity building in the seaweed industry. Additionally, one of the universities in Indonesia is Hasanuddin University in the eastern part of Indonesia, is well known for the seaweed research in Indonesia. These efforts also, we try to align these efforts with the SDGs, particularly the SDGs 8, 9, 12, and 14. The implementation of these strategies are expected to optimize seaweed as a critical natural resource with strong climate benefits, as has been mentioned earlier. In Indonesia, farms in Lombok, one of the islands in Indonesia, there is a bay, a particular bay with seaweed has been grown. And it contributes to the thousands of tons of carbon yearly, with certain species absorbing carbon around 300, more than 300% more than others. Cultivated seaweed exceeds many terrestrial plants, particularly in photosynthetic efficiency, offering scalable solutions for reducing greenhouse gases. Beyond carbon capture, we also use seaweed for livestock to reduce the methane, as well as for bioplastic. Yeah, this is something that is growing in Indonesia to seaweed as bioplastic. However, climate change such as sea rising, sea temperatures rising, ocean acidification, extreme weather, and coastal erosion has influenced some of the seaweed farms in Indonesia, causing mass bleaching events, sharply reducing yields and farmers' incomes. Changes in rainfalls and sedimentation further damage seaweed habitats, underscoring the need for climate resilience in sector strategies. We also see that the global seaweed industry faces challenges such as fragmented governance, underinvestment, and lack of international standard. Hopefully, with the initiative, we can rely on the new standard, limiting the potential of seaweed to contribute to the achievement of the SDGs, the Paris Agreement, as well as biodiversity goals. With the hope that the United Nations Global Seaweed Initiative, Indonesia hope that there will be a solution. There will be a platform aiming to integrate seaweed into global climate and development policies, strengthen coastal resilience, regional cooperation, and boost research, investment, and technology exchange. For Indonesia, the UN Global Seaweed Initiative, and closely with our national priority, will support Indonesia development. With over 17,000 islands, the ocean climate nexus is essential for us, and so then seaweed is also relevant. Indonesia pledges strong support with the success of the UN Global Seaweed Initiatives, and calls our nation, international organizations, and partners to collaborate together, and hopefully we can provide more opportunity for advances climate action, economic growth, and marine conservation.
For that clear-eyed recognition of the potential, as well as aware of the risks that the climate change is presenting to your seaweed sector, and very likely to many other seaweeds in the world, and for emphasizing the importance of science and so much more. And now we've heard from the 3 founding countries of the UN Global Seaweed Initiative that we're going to hear from more. Now we like to turn to another country to hear about your seaweed sector strategy. Your Excellency, Julio Cordano, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nicola, for the introduction and for the opportunity to be part of this important initiative. And you know, when I hear all the presentations, I see many commonalities with what we're doing in Chile. And I really like also the presentation at the beginning that outlined a little bit the objectives of the coalition, precisely because I think it's important that we switch gears as soon as possible to implementation of the goals, and see how we can actually work together towards common objectives. And there are a number of words here that we want to see probably in this coalition. And I'll go to Chile for a moment, but just in a moment. But just wanted to say, for example, that recognition is one. The recognition of the role of seaweed in local economies, in climate policies. We would like to see the word science. the word conservation, and the word partnerships, because I think one of the most important elements here, and I just wanted to underline this, because we are in the Global Compact Office. So the private and public-private partnerships can be extremely relevant here as we are moving into a sustainable management of seaweed. And the other thing, the other concept I would suggest that we eventually or look into in more detail is transition, just transition, because many local communities are also connected to the use of seaweed. In many cases, it's a very essential component of the local communities' economies. And therefore, we need to make sure that as we make progress towards sustainability, we all at the same time take into account those existing economies and local communities, indigenous peoples also that are also dependent many times of this resource. So I wanted to say that, of course, many around the table have already highlighted the importance of seaweed and the potential for climate mitigation, and we're really looking forward to hearing from Brazil about the potential ideas for COP30. As you can see, there are a few, but it would be very, very good to have that conversation in the context of COP30. And I want to say, that from a point of view, also the importance of seaweed. If you look at the situation in Chile, of course, there's the social and economic importance, but it's also the ecosystem. And I'm not only talking about the importance of keeping the balancing the ecosystem that exists around seaweed, but it's also about how all these dimensions connect to each other. So, for example, in the extreme south of Chile, the southern tip of the world, there's nothing more southern than the southern tip of Chile. So after that is Antarctica. Yeah, that's another story. But the southern tip of the world, at least, there's an enormous amount of kelps in the extreme south of Chile, and that's an ecosystem in itself that is already, providing a lot of climate solutions, lots of mitigation, but also adaptation, because it works as a barrier to potential, tsunamis and coastal resilience and all that, but also the resources that exist there also depend on a healthy ecosystem of kelps. And maybe some of you have been to the extreme south of Chile. The great green crab that you can find there. The centolla, if you haven't done it, it is please add it to your list. To do it the last time. This is something up. So, but that depends really on the healthy ecosystem of the kelps in the south. And that, of course, that hasn't really gone unnoticed in Chile. As you may know, Chile is one of the largest exporters of seaweed in the world, and that is not a coincidence. A total of 5,600 square kilometers of macroalgae forests, which is enormous. It's a very significant percentage of population of seaweed. So, as a result of that, one of the major exporters, but also a great potential economic benefits and market that can only grow. There are issues related to sustainability, as I was mentioned, and this is maybe one of the major deliverables of this initiative, and we are really eager to engage in that kind of approach. But at the same time, I think we cannot hide from problems. And this is something very important because an initiative like this gets together precisely because we want to cooperate in something that we want to solve and something that we want to face together. And here, of course, there is issues of overexploitation in many cases, sustainability, therefore, and that definitely calls for international cooperation, common understanding, learning from each other, and that's extremely important. So, just to summarize, if we could find, or if we could propose, maybe 3 priorities, and this is very much aligned with what we had before. So, but what I said, we'll say it because this is our view of this. We would like to see 3 pillars. One related to science. Many of you already mentioned the science gaps that exist in the observation of the seaweed and their benefits. So, but you need to measure. You cannot manage what you cannot measure, right? Science is the first one. The second one has to do with public policies and policies in general. How do we manage? What is the best way to do it? How do we involve local community, etc. And the last one is finance, because I think it's not only about creating fund or anything like that. I don't want to jump into that kind of discussion, but definitely, as I was saying before, partnership with private sector, aligning finance to make sure that it goes into creating the right incentives. Those things will result in important flow of finance in order to achieve our goals. So I'll leave it there, but again, Chile is very much committed to this initiative, and we're really looking forward to contributing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're looking forward to hearing from you tomorrow, and thank you for emphasizing the importance of science, the importance of conservation and of cooperation, of looking for solutions, and of that just transition. We took good note of your emphasis on the 3 pillars. And by happy coincidence, as you're talking about the importance of public-private collaboration, our next speaker just happens to be private sector. Nancy, over to you to present a private sector perspective. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Nancy Raba. I'm from Tanzania. I'm also known as the Seaweed Queen. I'll tell you briefly in the next slide where that name came from. Yes.
Next slide.
Yeah, next slide. For me, I want to share how I fell in love with seaweed, because I feel this is a conference where we are about to make history. The UN Global Seaweed Initiative, I think, is such a monumental step, given also what Vincent presented, that Global Seaweed Coalition just started 5 years ago. And for me, it has had an enormous impact, in which also I'm going to share in the next slide. Sorry, Melanie, just before that. Yes, just a bit here. Vincent also said that during COVID, there presented opportunity and also problems, but also for me, it was a time of an opportunity. I was in Zanzibar, and I remember we were doing research with Gary, who is sitting just at the back, and we were trying to see the effects of climate change and the impact it has on seaweed. And while we were in that landscape, for me, I saw beyond seaweed, I saw the intersection of seaweed and livelihoods. I saw hundreds of women who were sitting in the ocean farming seaweed, and I started to question myself. When they farm seaweed, where is seaweed? And I think I was very intrigued with the numbers and the facts, in which we can go to the next slides. The fact which says that over 30,000 women along Tanzania coast are engaged in seaweed farming, and out of 100,000 tons of seaweed that was produced in the country, 99% of it was being used for export, and less than 1% being used in country. For me, I was very much interested, and the first time of it, I started to look at international. And also, seaweed represents one of the fastest growing states in the blue economy, and Tanzania is the leading seaweed manufacturer for Africa and the and currently, when you look at the landscape, and I speak for my country, that the innovation is around seaweed farming to value in the area of food, in biostimulants, in fertilizer, which is to see young people. This was not happening 5 years before. The knowledge gap was huge. Right now, there is an increase of knowledge of what we can do with seaweed. And also, even seaweed cultivation delivers economic, social, and environmental benefits. This is one of the attractive parts of seaweed. It is very multi-purpose, And I think that is what makes this plant so unique. But also seaweed as nature-based solution, and I think a lot has been said around that. However, we are also seeing emerging conversation of seaweed as a potential blue carbon sink, but also the question also remains to what extent, and that is why we need more science and research. Which most of you have said in this room. I just want you to look also at the picture in the left. That is me, 2022, and the down picture, that is me in 2025. Though that's in the first picture, that is our first seed facility we were renting, but we have been able to grow from 2022 to 2025. Now we own our own facility for seaweed food processing, which is 5 times bigger. And we are also the first seaweed for food company in Tanzania to have the food standards of Tanzania Bureau of Standards. And that is thanks for the grant which I got back in 2023 to conduct research from the Global Seed Coalition, which has enabled us to get some metrics. And through that, in the next slide, and through that, we have been able to enter into different supermarkets. So I'm getting into my point of why the Global Seaweed Initiative it's important and why it is important now. So some of the challenges which I'm still seeing for the time that I've been in the sector is that there is a danger of sustainable production. Actually, we say that my country is the lead seaweed producer in Africa, but I'm also wondering how is it going to, are we going to stay there? How long are we going really to stay there? Because also what we are seeing is that there is an age gap when it comes to farming seaweed. Most of the women who are farming seaweed are 40 to 50 years. Finding young people being interested to want to continue the legacy of farming seaweed, the interest is still low. So how are we pulling more young people to make sure that the legacy lives on, right? I have a feeling Madagascar might be taking our position very soon, but I think we are bracing for impact. And also, for the carbon sequestration, Tanzania has over 400 seaweed species, but we have explored more 2 types of species, that is cotonie and spinosum. What is the potential of the other seaweed species? That calls upon more investment on research and science to know the potential of other types of seaweeds, and especially when it comes to carbon potential. But also we are seeing climate variability. When you compare the production that was being harvested before and now, there is a huge decline, and that is because of issues like climate change, which at the end of the day, you find not only the production goes low, but there is also these diseases such as ice diseases that is affecting the harvest. But also the awareness gap and market gaps. You might find also, I think that is happening up to today, and this is just to pin the importance of advocacy. Someone is just living just close to the shore, but you tell them like, that is seaweed and you can do 1, 2, 3, and they look at you, really? I've never seen seaweed, and someone is just living along the coast. So there is still also limited knowledge. And before I even founded my company, the first thing which we did was conducting a research of how the farmers are understanding the importance of seaweed and nutritional health. And 98% didn't know the importance between seaweed and nutritional health. And that is what really stemmed the founding of the Healthy Seaweed Company Limited. But lastly, I sat with Vincent in COP28 in a panel, and I think we emphasize on this, that is coordination amongst players in the connected sector. Financial, they're saying that we want to fund, but also when it comes to startup and seaweed, they find like we're very high risk. So it is quite very fragmented. We are not speaking the same language, and there is a need for collaboration. And this is why, in the next slide, this is why I find this initiative very important. First of all, I find it very important for the global coordination. We need to have a united, we need to unite our fragmented efforts and to create strong governance and policy framework for seaweed sector. But also there's still critical gaps which we need to close. But I'll mention one because I'm wearing an entrepreneurship hat. We need more investments in the sector. We need more investments in the sector if we want to see scalability. We need to invest more in the sector to see scalability. In the right picture, that is me when my products made in one of the big supermarkets in Dar es Salaam. And it was a monumental moment. Right now, we're in 60 stores around Dar es Salaam, Mwanza, and we are heading to Moshi. That is a city near 30 kilometers to the tallest mountain in Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro. But also equity and inclusion. We need to ensure that coastal women and smallholders farmers, who are the backbone of this sector, they access fair funding and global recognition. The other picture, that is where I got the title of Seaweed Queen, because the Global Seaweed Coalition got me to meet Prince William for the first time, and that name was granted by the United Republic of Social Media. Yes, lastly, I want to honor a woman. We all know Dr. Flower. If you don't know Dr. Flower, it's also known, sorry, my voice is breaking, as the mother of seaweed. She passed away a month ago. And what you see there in the picture, that was one of our first events where we brought together seaweed processors. Thanks to Global Seaweed Coalition again, we came together to discuss our challenges and how to move forward. And Dr. Flower was there, the keynote speaker. And always our emphasis was on young people unite, to need to innovate in the sector. And she was very happy to see that the seaweed sector is advancing. And I know that if she could have been here today, she could have been the happiest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing Dr. Flower into the room, for honoring her memory. We really miss her. We're very saddened at her passing. So thank you very much for that. And thank you for presenting your entrepreneurship perspective, including, of course, the need for investment. Very glad that you brought that up. And also the importance of standards. You in the private sector, you need for those standards. And we've been hearing that in the Global Seaweed Coalition for a long time. And this UN Global Seaweed Initiative presents an opportunity to be able to advance that conversation substantively and effectively. It is now my great pleasure to turn over to our last panelist, but assuredly least, Dr. Carpentier of UN Trade and Development, to bring the panel segment home.
Right. Let me try to do that. Thank you so much, Nicola, and it's a real pleasure to be amongst you all. Good afternoon, Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. It's an honor to be here, and we're way looking forward to tomorrow for the launch of the UN Global Seaweed Initiative, for which we've all been working for all the reasons been mentioned. And let me just say that as the world looked for scalable solutions, including under the leadership of the Brazilian government for the country, for both climate and plastic pollution crisis, seaweed, as has been mentioned, stands out as one of the most powerful and overlooked tools that we have to address these challenges that offer co-benefits in terms of greenhouse gases reduction, diversification of markets and trade opportunities for developing countries, ocean health, job creation, and economic opportunities for women, as we just heard. And seaweed farming absorb carbon at an impressive rate, up to 0.9 tons of CO2 equivalent per hectare per year. This is amazing. And unlike many land-based climate solutions, it doesn't compete with food crop for biodiversity or water uses, which is running low pretty much everywhere, even in my country, Canada, where we have a lot of water. In fact, seaweed can help reverse marine degradation by absorbing excess nitrogen and phosphorus, improving coastal water scarcity, and providing critical food and habitat for marine life. These ecological benefits alone are reason to take seaweed seriously as a kind of climate solution. And this is why we got involved, because in my branch at UNCTAD, UNCTAD is the UN Trade and Development, so that UN agency working on trade and development, helping developing countries to diversify their market and their export through trade and develop through trade, which is what most of our countries have done. And so we don't talk about conservation, we talk about sustainable use of resources, which is what these countries need to do. And which is mentioned to develop those markets. So beyond the sole the role of restoring ecosystem and addressing climate change, seaweed is emerging as a key input for next generation sustainable materials, particularly plastic alternative and substitutes. And I'll get back to that in a few minutes. Seaweed derived bioplastic and biomaterial using compounds like alginate and carrageenan are now being developed as alternative to plastic packaging or trade. Unlike conventional plastic, these materials are biodegradable, marine safe, and produce fewer greenhouse gases during production and breakdown. In fact, seaweed-based bioplastic have been shown to cut emission by more than 60% compared to fossil fuels based plastic. At UNCTAD, we have accompanied and giving visibility to the innovation landscape in this space at our Marine Base Expo, alongside our 5th UN Ocean Conference, where many of you were with us. This year, we featured the startup like Ulu, Zero Circle, and Go Fast. Sorry, we didn't know you, we have invited you. A producers association who already is advocating for and scaling seaweed-based packaging to replace single-use plastic. We also published a research including a 2025 report on marine-based substitute and alternative to plastic, spotlighting innovation like bioglass produced from microalgae, which offer low emission alternative to energy-intensive materials such as traditional glass and ceramic. They are the opportunities are so many that you can even fit them all in a 5-minute speech. The economic momentum behind these innovations is also building. Global export of marine-based substitute and alternatives reached 10.8 billion in 2022, following a decade of steady 3% average annual growth. And remember, the economy is not growing at 3% a year, so this is growing faster than the economy. And it's mostly based on entrepreneurs like Nancy, actually. It's those that are there to innovate and take risks. But we should not let them take these risks alone and without safety. So something many hope that the inconclusive, INC 5.2, that was the global plastic negotiation, where all hoped that we could make some progress and recognize seaweed and other non-plastic substitute in part of the language. But all hope are not lost, and I want to make sure we all keep, and this is one of the things the UN Global Seaweed Initiative will certainly continue to work on, because in article, it's interesting for those of you that followed, and I just want to give you the short of it. In Article 4, Paragraph 3 of the chair's summary, which was not accepted by the way, the substitute and alternative were framed as economically inferior to fossil-based plastic, particularly due to the high production and transportation costs. And while they may still be true, this may still be true from some early stage material, it ignores the fast pace at which seaweed bioplastic are environmentally and socially superior and are progressing rapidly. And then what is gives us hope is that in Article 5, Paragraph 1, a more optimistic tone is adopted, recognizing plastic substitute and alternative as a promising source for non-food application, for which further R&D is needed, something I'm just going to mention, but also many others, and that opened the door for seaweed-based material. And these opened the door for us to work together to ensure that whenever and however these negotiations take back again, that we can actually, the coalition can have a voice there. But recognition alone will not be enough. Seaweed sector today remains underdeveloped and fragmented. It lacks global coordination, certification system, and access to financing, as you mentioned, for product development and deployment. Oftentimes we talk about the development, but deployment is extremely important. I'm sure Nancy, you work really hard to get those products in those markets. And we need to basically address the concern of many about the safety, the contaminant, and the full cycle environmental performance of these raw material. That's why the launch of the UN Global Seaweed Initiative is so timely. Create a platform for countries, UN agencies, and several UN agencies, because this is a complex issue. None of us has the answer. All of us need to work together to bring the pieces that we have together and coordinate better, accelerate progress, and not reinvent the wheel. And basically bringing civil society, academia, private sector together to ensure that this is not only a fast-growing sector, but an inclusive, sustainable, fast-growing sector. Something we've not done with the other commodities, and it's important that we take it right on from the get-go. So for UNCTAD, it's an opportunity to integrate seaweed into our work on sustainable trade, investment, and innovation, helping developing countries turn environmental assets into industrial and employment opportunities. And I'll give you a simple example of how this UN Global Seaweed Initiative is already helping. And Scott, you mentioned the report that we produced on standard, where this is going to come up soon. But what I want to mention is that we were able to share it with all of our partners, get the feedback so that actually we give you the best science that exists on the review we did on the gap in national, regional, and multilateral agreement and regulations, but also in national, regional, and international standards. And now we're gonna have a collective intelligence of everyone to review this with recommendation to move forward. We also, I give the same box, it doesn't matter. As we look ahead to our results, our collaboration goes forward, going forward is here. Seaweed is ready, the science is solid, the innovation is happening, and the potential is enormous. What we need is political will, and we have it with the member state that we have with us today, and bring out this gonna be a success.
It's enthusiasm and dynamism. This initiative is surely, this is something that characterizes the seaweed sector for those of us who have been in it now for a while. Thanks, Chantaline, for emphasizing. I think it's important to re-emphasize this, that the seaweed sector is growing faster than the global economy. Let's really register that point. And the importance of the conversation on seaweed as a non-plastic alternative. We're not there yet. So there's all this celebration of the ratification of BDNJ. Let's get to that joyful point soon when it comes to non-plastics. All right, that's really important.
Nicola, one thing,
please.
as we go to Brazil,
Yeah.
we submitted together the UN Global Seaweed Initiative as an event for an initiative in support of Access 3, key objective 9 of the Brazilian initiatives for COP30. So we are already part of the event for COP30.
It is on the agenda. Let's keep it moving. There is complexity. That's another point to underscore, and the need for inclusion. Now, so thank you again, Chantaline. That was terrific. Before we go to audience Q&A, we're going to try one more time to get Juliet's video to play. If it doesn't work, Melanie has been following the work on the ocean breakthrough very closely. I have to, but Melanie, I know you're prepared to speak about it if the Juliet video doesn't work. Let's try.
Thank you,
Does
Adeline.
work. Yay.
Thank you, Nicola, for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk about the seaweed breakthrough. I want to start first by just reminding you about the seaweeds, that their origins are ancient. The first red seaweeds were some of the first eukaryotes on the planet at 1.6 billion years ago. And today, of all the vegetated habitats, they form by far the largest area, much more than the seagrass beds or the coral reefs or the mangroves or the salt marsh. And the other really important thing is that they form a whole variety of different habitats. They're not just one thing. And you can see in those circular images, the rhodolith beds there, fucoids, tropical beds, deep water beds, and also seaweed aquaculture, a really important habitat, very small area so far, yet critically important for food security and very dependent on healthy wild stocks for new cultivars. And of course, kelp forests, which are shown in the seaweed diagram, and you can see the area that they occupy of habitat, so really important, and yet only just a part of that seaweed diversity in those seaweed habitats. And the other really critical thing is that the seaweeds lack proper conservation. It's largely inadequate. There's often no statutory direct protection for the seaweeds. And this conservation really, really matters. And that's where the seaweed breakthrough comes in. So the seaweed breakthrough, this is an initiative through the high-level climate champions of the 2030 breakthrough agenda. And the idea is to bring the global community together to accelerate the protection of the seaweeds. And the aim is to come up with 5 measurables for the targets that you can see in the box there. And it's firmly rooted in evidence. That's, for us, it's the State of the World Seaweeds, which we launched in Canada at the International Seaweed Symposium in May this year. And since then, we have brought together a group of about 65 experts for a panel from all 5 continents. And we have had our first meeting when we've discussed these targets, and we've thought about trying to come up with perhaps a percentage of how much we want to halt loss. And that has led to some very interesting discussion about whether that's really possible given all the different habitats and the health of the habitats, and a large number of gaps where our knowledge is lacking on the seaweeds. We will meet again in a few weeks' time to see if we've reached consensus through some worksheets that they're currently completing. And if necessary, we will meet a third time. And all that information we put together for a seaweed breakthrough with our goals and targets to be published hopefully early in 2026. We will then engage with the wide stakeholder community to bring people on board with the concept, to build narratives, to try to get pledges, to resource this particular initiative, and to take it to COP31 to launch it next year in November. And hopefully we'll be able to report more as things proceed. So thank you very much. And I'm sorry I'm not there to answer any questions, but maybe Nicola can help or relay any questions that she needs to me. Thanks.
So thanks very much to Dr. Rose for leading this important work. And both Melanie and I sit in that group of experts, and we both have something due tomorrow because those 5 targets are important. And you'll have seen that one of them was financed sustainably. So even though the emphasis in the seaweed breakthrough, which is part of this larger set of, it's a term of art, a larger set of ocean breakthroughs, corals and mangroves and seagrasses, with the seaweed breakthrough having a very different perspective, because there are socioeconomic dimensions to seaweeds that those other ecosystems don't have. But anyway, thank you very much to Juliette for doing that. I think now we're finished with the presentations. Let's switch gears. We have a wee bit of time, not much, for some questions. Oh, Julio, please.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Just because it gets
Very.
No, I just wanted to say that now that we are in the initial stages of this initiative, I think it would be interesting also to look into UNO4.
Yes.
The 4th United Nations Conference of the Ocean will be hosted in Korea by Korea and Chile. So I think it would be interesting to look at as we plan for our work ahead, maybe to look into 3 years' time, which is a reasonable timeline, to deliver something, agree on something that can be delivered in UNO4. It's important to mention that UNESCO-IOC will have a science congress in Rio in 2027, early 2027. So it would be interesting also to register scientists related to the development of knowledge about seaweed, precisely to work towards that goal of UNO4. So I just wanted to register that, and then maybe that's really part of our conversation.
Great suggestions, and let's indeed include that in the conversation tomorrow. I'm seeing that there's excitement in the chat about the Global Seaweed Initiative. Please hold that excitement for tomorrow, in fact, because it's possible that some of the questions that are coming up are going to be answered tomorrow, and if they're not, they can be posed and they can be answered following. So what we have left is a wee bit of time for some questions and answers from the audience. We're then going to hear from our chef Andrew, and then to close things out, we're going to turn back to our countries. We're going to turn to Brazil, and I think we might have a surprise on the Brazil side, but you'll let me know about that. And then we'll close with Minister Colbert. But let's hear questions or interventions, extremely brief. I'm sorry, I'm going to use moderator privilege to cut you off if you go long. So anybody in the room, please put up your hand, your physical hand. And if there is, okay, please introduce yourself and what's your question or statement.
Lawrence Ford, Conscious Capital, and I'm interested in sargassum because it is, one of the hardest things is to bring attention to people, and that has attention. And I understand some of the challenges of moving that into commercial uses, but I'm wondering what you think about that and what are some of the ways that we can help in that area.
And we just happen to have a resident expert on sargassum. Melanie, if you can give the 1-minute response to that, please.
Yeah. So yeah, we need to capture sargassum under this initiative, and that's why we are encouraging CARICOM countries to join it to raise this issue. In parallel, there is an initiative on sargassum crisis that has emerged from Republicana Dominicana, Mexico, and France, in fact. I think the one thing we need to solve is really this value chain. At the moment, in a lot of regions, it's a challenge. There is still sargassum stranding at the beach, and there is no collection and drying process. And for innovators, it's a challenge because they need to capture the entire value chain when they want to innovate. Solutions are there. It's just a matter of, to me, it's really a policy enabler that needs to be done to have all these facilities in place in different regions.
Thank you, Melanie. That was indeed a brief one. So I'm not seeing any other hands in the room, but I am seeing 2 hands online. So is that Safari Aziz? Over to you.
I'm from Indonesia. Hey, nice to see you. Yeah, I've worked in the seaweed business for 40 years, and I found that people cannot differentiate between subtropic and tropical seaweed. Yeah, so we need to get together and make this announcement that seaweed from different parts of the countries must be differentiated from, like nori from Japan and Korea and China, and tropical seaweed from Indonesia, Madagascar, or from Africa. And then also now hydrocolloid is facing problems in Europe. They don't allow to use agar-agar in the pet food. And then in United States, every 5 years, we have to evaluate the carrageenan, whether it's organic or not. So this is challenges for seaweed future. Yeah. So I think that's the question from, the insight from me, how to solve this problem.
The sound is so bad. We're trying to understand you in the room. We're not. So I'm going to ask you to put it sounded like a statement rather than a question. If you can please put it in the chat. And we're going to turn to the next person who would raise their hand, David. I'm going to ask you to speak slowly and I guess really loudly and clearly. Let's hope that it comes through.
Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for organizing such a fine event. I have 2 points. One, am I being listened well?
It's hard, but we can capture you better than the first.
Well on Zoom, David.
Sorry?
We hear you well online, but apparently in the room it's more problematic.
Okay, I'll do my best to try to convey the message. 2 points. First, that it's important to note for all the partners, especially member states, that UNCTAD managed the UN Forum on Trade-Related Aspects of SDG 14, which is an official pre-event for all ocean conferences. So we can mainstream seaweed and all the economic and trade aspects within it to strengthen the fourth UN Ocean Conference organized by Republic of Korea and Chile. This is one. The second point I'm going to mention is that we have the UNCTAD Ministerial Conference at the end of October, and it's an opportunity for member states to also strengthen the role of UNCTAD in relation to oceans and circular economy if they want us to keep engaging and supporting this process. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'm going to ask Chantaline, can you give the capsule version of what David said for the room? It was hard to, we could hear you just.
I heard the last part, which was we have UNCTAD 16, 20, and 23rd of October, where we're going to have talk about circular economy, bioeconomy, and biotrade, which will include seaweed. I think David, you were talking about the Brazilian Granary of Solution, the event initiative that we will have at COP30. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. I'm pretty sure that the recording is going to capture the online interventions really well, but in the room, apologies, it just is not working. And so I'm going to turn to the room again for a second, and recognizing Raul, but maybe because we're having such difficulties, maybe you can put your intervention or question in the chat. Any other questions here in the room? Melanie, you have a question?
It's not a question, but more an intervention to jump on what has been raised from Chile. On the 3 points, which are science, policy, and finance, I just wanted to answer a few insights that we have captured in the Global Seaweed Coalition in the last years. On science, to accelerate what needs to be made, it's really developed those regional research centers that could really seek for this new species or species that are more climate resistant. I think that's what we hear from the foreign stakeholder here, and having like a regional pole, like one for the entire East Africa, one for Southeast Asia. It's already the case in Indonesia, but trying to develop those points. On policy, I think the UN Global Seaweed Initiative really answers this point, so I won't be long on that. And last, on finance, and we are working now with the coalition on a scoping study to develop a blended fund for finance to de-risk investment to private sector. So I think that would be one tool. And last tool, sorry, I'm a bit long. We're gonna get some insight from the Japanese government and the G-Blue credit that has been put in place that really encourage private sector to fund restoration projects, because they link CO2 capture to an amount which is consistent, $1,000. And even if we are lacking science still, and it's hard for me as a scientific officer to say it, it really enables restoration project, and that is a good tool to learn from the Japanese government. So I encourage you to join our webinar. It's 1st of October online to get the insight from this government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can you please let the person who is in the waiting room in? And it is now time. I'm not seeing any more hands in the room. Hope you're understanding. We really need to not have any more of the difficult audio in the. So it's time for us to have a quick change to hear from Andrew Wilkinson, a chef perspective. Andrew of North Coast Seafoods. Over to you.
Yes, let's change this up quite a bit. Yes, I'm Andrew Wilkinson. I'm from North Coast Seafoods in Boston. I am a lifelong chef and a seafood sustainability advocate for sure. And I come here to speak about my sort of one-of-a-kind seaweed innovation. And this has truly become my passion project. So it's really an honor to come and present it. My passion project is this. It is a Seaweedish meatball. You've all heard of a Swedish meatball. This is a Seaweedish meatball. I set out to create a seaweed innovation for the greatest generation. To me, that is the next generation. I'm focused on feeding that next generation. I have to give a big thanks to my employer, North Coast Seafoods, for backing my R&D journey, because what started as an idea way off of the radar for a seafood company has now become a wave of seaweed innovation, and together we're sort of changing the game out there in food service. And we all have one of those friends who help us get through, who inspires us always. And for that, it's a woman named Jill Moon in Medfield, Massachusetts, who Jill always reminds me that there's a hope for a better future and that we are all entrusted with the care of creation. In fact, creation's prosperity is tightly tied to our own prosperity, and regenerative ocean farming is a very powerful way forward. Everything is interconnected, to your point, and that when we share that interconnectedness, we share our knowledge, everyone benefits. So let me give you a chef's perspective in a nutshell. Seaweed is nothing short of a culinary revelation. It brings depth of umami that chefs and customers crave. Its versatility shines in everything from broths to burgers. And here's the real beauty. When I bring seaweed into my kitchens, I'm not just elevating flavor, I'm cooking with a solution that nourishes both people and planet. And for chefs around the world, it's not just an ingredient, it's an invitation to reimagine what food can do. So when I first entered the seafood industry, I was struck by the challenges of overfishing, climate change, and unsustainable practices. And honestly, instead of accepting those challenges as insurmountable, I asked myself, what can I do to help? And that question led me to kelp. Kelp has turned out to be one of the most interesting culinary ingredients I've ever worked with. I'm inspired by its environmental and culinary benefits. As a chef, I've come to believe that healthcare is everywhere. It doesn't just happen in hospitals or in a doctor's office. It happens every time we feed someone. From a chef's kitchen to a school cafeteria, every plate is now a frontline healthcare decision these days. And that's why I started Seaweedish, to give kids a real, clean, plant-based, allergen-free food. It's about healthy meals made with seaweed. But it's also about teaching them the environmental value of what's on their lunch tray. Currently, my days are filled with elementary school visits, college cafeteria kelp tastings, and food service professional development training. But to be clear, I developed the Seaweedish meatball for young people, our next generation. And here's what makes kelp extraordinary to a young person. When you explain to them about the kelp magic, that seaweed needs no land, it needs no fresh water, it needs no herbicides, it would never get a pesticide, and as it grows, it cleans the ocean. It's the only plant that restores the environment as it feeds us. And when you tell this to a fifth grader, it's amazing. You can see and hear their brain working. It's truly amazing. It's a beautiful thing to watch. So I decided to sort of shake up the menu. Think about our standard proteins: beef, poultry, pork, seafood. That lineup has been drilled into us. But producing it at the scale we do now is drawing the planet's resources faster than we can replenish them. And in many circles, even talking about alternatives, plant-based, ocean-based, seaweed, can almost feel counterculture, even radical, and of course, too woke. I simply wanted to create something crave-worthy, something craveable. When creating food for young people, taste has to come first. I knew right away that a strong, low-tide flavor profile was not going to work for fifth graders. So it was important to make the experience familiar. So I packed it with recognizable flavors. I made it an excellent protein source equivalent to animal protein. I loaded it with umami goodness. And taste is powerful. Good taste can change minds of a fifth grader. And once that fifth grader understands that there's an option just as crave-worthy, just as satisfying, but better for the world, they can't unsee that. My criteria for this little meatball was simple. First, it had to lead with kelp as the first ingredient. It had to be 100% plant-based. It had to be allergen-free. It had to be easy to cook in our school cafeterias. And of course, it had to be craveable. But it also had to be a real food item, not a meat analog, okay? Not a science experiment. It's not the Impossible Burger. It's not Beyond Beef. Those are more of a science project than an actual chef's recipe. And I am a chef, not a scientist. And here's the thing. Chefs all around the world share these same values: creativity, food science, sustainability, problem solving. In our kitchens, we're not just cooking, we're addressing real world challenges. Every restaurant menu we create, in many ways, is a climate policy in the making. Seaweed is helping chefs rethink the word sustainability. And remember, chefs don't create just recipes, we create formulas. And the Seaweedish is a culinary blueprint for how seaweed can be part of the solution. The Seaweedish Blueprint connects directly to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, addressing hunger, nutrition, women empowerment, sustainable jobs, eco protection, and global collaboration. Seaweed is a rising culinary force for the environmental good, and chefs everywhere can help write the future. So let me close this up. I'm so happy to report that this little Seaweedish meatball is continuing to grow. Proud to share that this is now available across the country in every state through Cisco distribution. And this year, this product was honored by the National Restaurant Association with their FABI Award for Best New Innovation in the country. And I do believe that chefs can make sustainability delicious. Chefs can make seaweed accessible to all diners now. Chefs can make seaweed irresistible. And the Seaweedish meatball is just one small example. And I look forward to helping chefs everywhere make kelp the new catch of the day for the next generation. Thank you very much.
For those who are in the room, you're going to be able to benefit directly from Andrew's product. Really, really liked your question, what can I do to help?
Yes.
And I think we can all ask ourselves that question. So one thing about being the moderator is we get a lot of requests. There is excitement online as well as in the room. Now, we had a couple of questions from the past president of the International Seaweed Association, who, thank you, Elena, for relaying the questions about the UN Global Seaweed Initiative. We've taken good note of those questions and they will be answered tomorrow, noting that those who are speaking tomorrow, please take note of the questions about the governance of the initiative and I've forgotten what the other one was, but these are questions that can be answered tomorrow. Now, Raul, I understand that you have something really important to say. Just know that the sound is awful in the room and we may not be able to understand you. If that is the case, we're going to ask you, so just to please make a very brief intervention, and maybe what we can do is share the recording with people afterwards. So Raul, I'm giving you the floor, knowing that we may not be able to hear you here. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope you hear me. Well, I just do my best. Well, I actually appreciate, first of all, for your time, your efforts. I just post a note letting you know that Venezuela is an emerging industry. We started in 2019, and now we got more than 800 people. We got a production over 6,000 tons. And definitely we would like to know more about how we can get involved in the Seaweed Coalition Initiative. And if you can guide me through that, we highly appreciate it, okay? Because we are the second producer of seaweeds in Latin America after Chile. So I think we deserve to have more involvement in that. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Raul. And indeed, it's very surprising. We also heard from, I'm not sure if you mentioned it in your intervention, but several of us who follow Hatch Blue, Carlota Riva recently visited your country and surprised a lot of people with a really interesting and positive story of what is happening in Venezuela. So kudos to you, and we hope to hear a lot more from you. Who knows, maybe even in the context of the UN Global Seaweed Initiative. Possibly. It is now time for us to turn to our two countries to close this part out. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Carolina, who may turn the floor over to another colleague. So Carolina from the Permanent Mission of Brazil, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Albert. Event, and actually I will give the floor to my colleague who is from the Ministry of Aquaculture, that I understand worked closely with you to take forward this initiative. So I get it to be my colleague Eduardo Sfolia.
So just for everybody, this is Eduardo Sfolia, who is intervening, I guess, from Brazil. So welcome, Eduardo.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. So I'd like to start by acknowledging Mr. Pobert Mahatante, and through whom I greet all those present and those following us online on behalf of the Brazilian government. I would like to say that Dr. Marinês shared the COP30 special envoy for the oceans couldn't make it today, but tomorrow she may participate in the launch act. I'd like also to thank Global Seaweed Coalition for bringing us together and giving us the opportunity to share our perspectives on the importance of the United Nations Global Seaweed Initiatives. Well, since the UNOC3, when the initiative was announced, we have been working together with UNCTAD, FAO, along with France, Madagascar, Indonesia, now Chile, to try to create this collaborative platform. So against a background of economic and geopolitical uncertainties, the launch of an initiative conceived to strengthen international cooperation must be celebrated. Seaweed farming is the fastest growing agricultural sector, providing concrete opportunities for international cooperation in science, innovation, trade, and sustainable production. But driven by this rapid growth, the sector also demands collective efforts to establish globally recognized standards and regulations. That would be reason enough for us to be here. But having listened to all interventions this afternoon, I'm convinced that what really brought us together is a common vision that algae culture is a sector where the imperatives of environmental conservation and inclusive development can be convergent and mutually reinforcing. This vision guided the COP30 presidency's decision to include the seaweed farming in the action agenda as an example of ecosystem-based climate solution. As most of you may know, COP30 action agenda seeks to drive momentum towards the full implementation of the first global stocktake, steering our efforts to pursue the goals of the Paris Agreement. The action agenda is structured around key objectives, including ocean stewardship, agriculture and food system transformation, and human and social development. Through these key objectives, around 400 international initiatives have been invited to join the action agenda to ensure the engagement of all sectors of the economy and society. And the United Nations Global Initiative, Seaweed Initiative, accepted our invitation and this challenge. Now it's part of COP30 Agenda's Champion League, playing side by side with the FAO Blue Transformation, Aquatic Blue Food Coalition, the World Fish, Aquatic Food and Ocean Breakthrough, and many other initiatives to mobilize civil society, academia, businesses, investors, philanthropists to accelerate transition towards more sustainable, low carbon and climate resilient food systems. At COP30, more than 40 panels will debate the nexus, climate aquatic food systems, including specific panels on seaweed farming in the blue zone, the green zone, and the agri zone. The events will take place from November 17th to the 20th in thematic days dedicated to the oceans and agriculture. The panels will be unique opportunities to showcase initiatives in algae culture worldwide and their contributions to global climate goals. In the events, panelists will be expected to propose strategies to scaling up and replicating these initiatives, outlining the necessary technologies, capabilities, and investment required to unlock their potential to transform aquatic food systems, to strengthen livelihoods, and to improve environmental sustainability and circularity. In this process, the United Nations Global Seaweed Initiatives and all other initiatives are called upon to put people at the center of climate action, especially those in vulnerable situations. Echoing COP30 President, Ambassador André Corrêa do Lago, climate action is not merely a scientific or technical challenge, it's also a profoundly human challenge. When the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was asked which industries are most vulnerable to climate impacts in the oceans, its answer was unequivocal. Small-scale fisheries, livelihoods, and jobs are the most vulnerable to climate-driven changes in marine resources and ecosystem services. Adding that the climate change exacerbates inequalities already existed or already experienced in many coastal communities, particularly by indigenous populations, Pacific Islanders, migrants, and women in fisheries and mariculture. The answer is clear. Aquatic food sectors are highly vulnerable to climate change and need to adapt. And the world 500 million small-scale fisheries, 2 million of them in Brazil, are the most vulnerable among us and cannot be left behind. This is why Brazil invites the United Nations Global Seaweed Initiative's members to prioritize climate solutions whose implementation also enhances the adaptive capacity of populations most vulnerable to climate change. The initiative was conceived to strengthen international coordination and cooperation to foster science, innovation, commerce, and sustainable practices in seaweed sectors. Looking beyond the figures, the initiative's success will be primarily measured by the concrete impact that aquaculture projects on the lives of farming families, their communities, and ecosystems they inhabit. But we are well positioned to achieve these goals. As part of the circular bioeconomy, alga culture programs implemented in different countries, including in Brazil, demonstrated on the ground how development, climate, and nature can work together to preserve marine biodiversity, uplift coastal communities, and empower women. They are prime examples of climate solutions whereby mitigation and adaptation can be achieved simultaneously. They also demonstrate that with adequate support in technology, capacity building, and financing, aquaculture can significantly expand and increase its inputs, delivering multiple climate benefits. While sequestrating large amounts of carbon, alga culture programs can also enhance food security, support livelihoods, and generate income, thereby strengthening the climate resilience of coastal and riverine communities. It's a powerful message to take to COP30. To conclude my remarks, I would like to invite each one of you to join hands and engage in COP30's global mutirão. Mutirão is a word in Tupi-Guarani, an indigenous language. It means call for action, when everybody gets together with the same objective, but each one does what they know how to do and does it by themselves. In the run-up to COP30, Brazil wishes to mobilize all actors in a global mutirão government, civil society, private sector, indigenous people, local communities, all together to enhance climate action. This approach also emphasizes that while climate change is a global challenge, the solutions are often rooted in local initiatives. For this reason, in a significant first, the action agenda will dedicate spaces within the Blue Zone to fisheries and aquaculture. In this landmark, within the climate negotiations and processes, seaweed farming is taking central stage, championed by the United Nations Global Seaweed Initiatives. Therefore, COP30 offers us an unique opportunity to join forces, to translate the initiative's ambitions into tangible solutions connected to people's real lives. Brazil is looking forward to welcoming you at COP30 in Mutirão to highlight aquaculture as a climate solution. Thank you very much.
For that stirring intervention on behalf of Brazil, we are truly delighted to hear Brazil's support, to know already how Brazil is incorporating seaweed into the COP30 action agenda and thinking beyond. And that you're highlighting the importance of seaweed to get doing mitigation and adaptation together. And thank you so much for that call to action, which I'm sure will be echoed tomorrow in the official launch of the UN Global Seaweed Initiative. There is so much excitement in this, and I see that Jill Rossi's hand has been up all this time. And I'm sorry, Jill, we're bringing the event to a close now. This is the hard part of being the moderator. And sometimes you just have to cut people off, and I've seen so much excitement in the chat. And I'm going to invite those who can answer the questions that have been posed in the chat to do so, to follow up. So Azadine and Melanie, you've been following the chat. Please feel free to compile those. And if you know who to direct the questions to, please do that. It is now time for me to once again have the honor to turn the floor over to Minister Gobert. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you once again for giving me the floor, Excellencies, esteemed delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Few countries in Africa have started to process seaweed, such as United Republic of Tanzania, through Zanzibar. We also have Morocco. Last year, for example, we had the exhibition in the beautiful town of Mahajanga, northwestern Madagascar. And that was organized by the stakeholders around marine conservation. Maybe you've heard about the LMMA. It is locally marine managed area network, and the BMUs for all countries within the Western Indian Ocean region. I was very astonished and very amazed to see how women from Zanzibar processed. You weren't there, but I saw many of your colleagues. They process seaweed and showing their final products with pride and success. In the northeastern Madagascar too, the town of Antala, some companies succeeded already to extract amino acids and other final products from seaweed. And we are improving. And maybe soon we are going also to have some chef in Madagascar. So adding seaweed in their ingredients. However, ladies and gentlemen, we still lack knowledge and means. That is one of the main reasons why we need this Global Seaweed Coalition Initiative as a global platform to address issues around knowledge, finance, and governance. Hence, to be able to address the global increasing demand, we urgently need to put in place seaweed quality standardization that member states will meet from improving the genetic resources, reaching high quality of raw products as we need to farm and farm more the ocean. That's why we have ocean farmers in Madagascar. But it is not enough yet as we need to process locally to produce fertilizers, more carrageenan, biofuel, pharmaceutical products, feeds for livestock, human food, and so on. Ladies and gentlemen, as Madagascar is heading this year, the Southern African Development Community region, known as SADC, Tanzania is part of the SADC region. Our aim is to spread knowledge around, among others, seaweed farming as part of the agricultural transformation vision of His Excellency Mr. President Radrina that needs to be implemented for our common growth. The main advantage from seaweed farming is the fact that it is practiced directly by the community, mainly women and youth. And if we will be able to process at local level, that will create more jobs for the middle class as well. That is why I strongly believe in it, as I can see and can feel our bright future as a blue country being an island, the largest coastline in Africa, where seaweed transforms people's lives. Before I conclude, let me thank and recognize the co-chairs and the countries that are joining this coalition, particularly the pioneer members, Madagascar, France, and Indonesia, and of course, everyone that contributed to the successfulness of this event. And then we also have the donors. Colleagues, you have done a wonderful work, as I know since the beginning that we will receive more support. So you and I have believed in it. We all have believed in it. So we made it. This is a good model that deserves to be spread at global scale to fight against climate change and then build more resilience. Therefore, comrades, Madagascar is ready to pilot, ready to partner, and ready to lead. With that said, I'm sitting here right before you to formally declare once more the willingness of Madagascar to co-chair all initiatives around this forum. So long live to the Global Seaweed Coalition, long live to the SADC region, long live to Madagascar, France, Brazil, Indonesia, and the rest of the other countries, Chile, long live to the families and friends and seaweed. Marvel Bebata, merci beaucoup, makasi. I do thank you.
We are delighted. So in this event, both France and Madagascar have announced that they are going to be co-chairing the UN Global Seaweed Initiative, and we couldn't be more thrilled. Thank you so much for the time. We look forward to your chairing the meeting tomorrow. The formal launch of the Global Seaweed Initiative, the UN Global Seaweed Initiative. So now in the 2 minutes that remain, thank you. So what we've heard today is really exciting. There's a lot of energy. You can feel it in the room, and I'm sure that you can feel it online. I'm seeing so many emojis. It's great. To the potential that we've heard about today. The sector needs support on the policy front, on the institutional front, from local, subnational, national, and regional governments, as well, especially at the global level. And that's what the UN Global Seaweed Initiative is going to help. It's a step towards that. And dedicated financial support will make all of the difference. And we in the Global Seaweed Coalition are delighted to announce that we are receiving a fresh infusion of funding from Builder's Vision to support our continued operations. Huge thanks to our Builders. It's going to help us to keep doing our work, and we'd love to get more in. Thanks to our organizing partners here at UN Global Compact for hosting us here today in this beautiful room. To all of our partners, especially UN Trade and Development, for your great promotion of this event. Your social media team is first rate. They're on it all the time. Thank you. To all of our speakers online here in the room, to our friends at the Aquatic Food Coalition, who are steadfast supporters of the coalition and now of this initiative. behind the scenes, all of you for your continued wonderful support. And last but certainly not least, special thanks to the Global Seaweed Coalition team for all your hard work, especially special mentions to Melanie. And as being behind the scenes, everything you've done to help make this event happen, including some really fantabulous on-time, real-time management. Finally, a promotional word. Gotta do a promotional word. If you're not already a member of the Global Seaweed Coalition, what? You have to. Please join. So please join the Global Seaweed Coalition. It's easy and it's free. You'll get all kinds of information about the Global Seaweed Initiative, the UN Global Seaweed Initiative. You'll get information about our events. You'll get information about seaweed research, and you'll have access to our online collaboration platform. Feel free to discuss with Nancy afterwards to see what it's like to be a member and to use that platform. Now, either Melanie or Azadine will have posted in the chat a link to the website where you can find a tab to become a member. It is free, it's easy to become a member. We hope that you found this event both informative and inspiring. I know I did. Please reach out to any of us if you'd like to discuss further. And again, we'll be collecting all of those questions that came up in the chat, and we'll be doing our best to answer you offline. We look forward to seeing many of you tomorrow at the launch event for the UN Global Seaweed Initiative. And for those who are in the room, we'll do a family photo, and then we will enjoy Chef Andrew's Seaweedish meatball. Thank you very much to everybody. Goodbye.
And just one word to say that we will hold a meeting in Brazil right before COP on the 6th of November in Rio. So it's a quick meeting in partnership with the prize and possibly the visit of the Smetria that is last year. So stay tuned, and we'll be in Rio right before COP inside the formal event there. So see you in Rio.